Hey guys, welcome to the first video of the video series, The Learning Curve JavaScript. In this first video, we are going to understand how JavaScript works on a very high level. Uh, and as the video series progresses, we'll get in more depth how actually JavaScript works under the hood. So before we get into this video series, we need to keep in mind that when we talk about JavaScript in this video series, it's actually about JavaScript on the browser rather than on the server side. Uh, I hope that whoever is watching this video series has a basic level of understanding and familiarity with HTML and CSS. We'll see that how JavaScript actually introduces that tad bit of magic which actually makes your website such interesting and exciting thing to work on, right? So what is JS, right? So first of all, let us understand that to create a basic website, we need three things. One is HTML, another is CSS, and another is JavaScript. CSS is basically for the styling. Let's keep this in mind. There is one simple formula, right? Which is HTML plus CSS is a static website. HTML plus CSS plus JavaScript is a dynamic website. Now, what is the difference between a static website and a dynamic website? Let's understand it through an example. Now, let us understand what is the difference between a static website and a dynamic website. A static website is any website which just shows us the information and we are just there to sit down, look at the screen and do nothing about this information, just read about it. That's a static website. A dynamic website is a website where we can do something in the website. For example, we can scroll through the website, we can scroll through the listings, we can search for something, we can trigger some action. For example, we can make a small calculator, right? We can calculate 2 numbers, 3 numbers, 4 numbers and whatnot. So that is the difference between a static website and dynamic website. And who does help us to build this dynamic website? Who gives us this power to search something, to calculate something? It's none other than our hero JavaScript, right? So let's see an example. It will be more clear in that way. For example, let's say we have this H1 tag where we are just displaying this information where the sum of two numbers 2 and 3 is 5. We cannot do anything. We cannot add 2 numbers here. We cannot give user inputs to change the value of the number. If we want to do something to change anything, we have to write this again, and now maybe we can write a 3 here and then change the sum as 6. Does not help us, right? Just shows some random data. But how cool it would be if we could calculate the sum of 2 numbers. So there are ways in JavaScript, right? So for 2 user inputs, we can keep here 2 input tags. For the triggering, we need a button, a function which triggers it, which calculates the particular sum. So something like this. And then we need a sum function, which basically is a small function which calculates the sum of 2 numbers. This particular function which is being executed, which will help us to get the sum of 2 numbers, for example 6 plus 8 is equal to 14. Something happened. What happened? Oh, sorry, I gave the so yeah, 6 plus 8 is 14. So we get this 14. So this particular power is given us by JavaScript. Now that we'll understand what is the difference between static and dynamic websites, let's go and understand what actually JavaScript does in the browser. Now that we understand what's a static website and a dynamic website, let us see how JavaScript, HTML and CSS together work in the browser to give us a dynamic website, right? So whenever we load a web page, we run the code, that is the HTML, CSS and JavaScript together inside the execution environment, which is basically our web browser. So the primary task of JavaScript is basically to manipulate the HTML and the CSS elements through DOM API. Now, in this video series, we are not going to discuss about DOM APIs in a length, but yeah, we are going to see on a very high level how DOM works and what is DOM, right? Or also we need to keep in mind that web documents are generally loaded in the order they are written, right? In the order that they appear in the page. So if the JavaScript loads before the HTML and CSS, there will be nothing to manipulate, right? So hence we can, encounter errors. However, there are different strategies of loading JavaScript. Like there is an async strategy, there is defer strategy, right? But those are again out of the scope. We will focus on that in some other video series.